of that one. Have you seen the
every 4 hours?
No.
It's every 5 actually.
Every 5 hours.
This has only just been settled in its first position where it keeps rocking backwards and forwards to bring the yeast into the sausage shape, as I call it. Then, after 4 turns, after a day of doing that, it will start to do the turn, and it will do a second part of the turn, which is to come up front.
So it would have only been, they're normally loaded on a Friday, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it would have been loaded yesterday.
Okay.
And within 7 minutes, a plug of ice is formed in the neck of the bottle. That plug of ice is, being a solid, and is able to be pushed by the gas in the bottle. So when we turn it upright, the plug of ice is pushed against the yeast, which is all in the top, which actually is inside a plastic bidule as well, of the crown cap on top. We can then load it into a disgorging machine, semi-automatic. As we load in here electronically, it moves around the station as it passes under the tube here. This shaped device presses and it flicks the cap off. The pressure pushes the ice, the cap, the vigil, all out into waste, and as it moves straight through there, a mechanical thumb on the top. We then take a little of the wine out at the next stage, and that is put into reserve. That little bit is to make room for the liqueur, which is a reservoir in here that we'll have made that day. Well, we'll have made it, but we finalise it the day that we're doing it. We then set precisely the amount of dosage we want. We've decided that through dosage tastings, all sorts of ways, or just what we think as a group that this wine will take. And obviously when we newly launch a wine, it's no good. You can do a tasting, of course you can do a tasting, but you need to review that first batch of wine as it's going through, and you think, do a little bit more or a little bit less. Now there is a talk by some very, very fine winemakers that there is a problem as a winemaker, also as a wine journalist, dare I say it, as a wine buyer. Your palate, the more you taste, gets drier and drier and drier and drier and drier. So you can imagine you're tasting lots of those base wines, you get quite accustomed to it, and that's why I say I can drink one of those wines. It's reasonable table wine, where you go, well, you might not, but it's too acidic, too dry. And one very good piece of advice I had, which is totally inaccurate in the sense of you should be able to do it a bit more science, but he said, sit down, judge exactly what you think is the right for that wine, and then add 2 grams. The customer does not. We had a very good example. We were doing some trials with a group from a customer, and we had sales agents who don't do a lot of wine tasting, and the buyer and us were saying, no, we think this is about right, and they tasted it, and then we showed the next wine, which we think was a bit too sweet, and of course they all loved it. This is what the customer wants. This is, and you've got to remember it's what the customer wants. And this goes back, what was that again? About the zero dosage thing. Yes, I mean, if people want zero dosage, fine, but majority of people really, when they taste, actually want it that little bit sweeter than we think it ought to be. Anyway, I think that it's a difficult art. Champagne, we've decided today, seems to have a much higher dosage than